You're listening to Myers-Briggs Question Corner with Edythe Richards.
Here's a really interesting question from Karen. I'm in a new relationship with a man I suspect is an INTJ. I'm an ENFJ. We're both in our mid-40s. He seems to put his work before our relationship, which makes me unsure of whether I want to invest time into the relationship. How can I best get him to understand that a relationship is equally as important as his work? I'd first like to mention the risks of assuming a person is a certain Myers-Briggs type without them having verified this with a certified practitioner. In fact, there's no accurate way that any person can determine another's Myers-Briggs type. We want to keep in mind that how a person presents him or herself may actually be a reflection of societal norms and pressures or culture, so how one presents to the world may not be who they are inside. Secondly, keep in mind that what the Myers-Briggs actually measures is 4 fairly broad dichotomies of preferences. There's going to be more to a person than his or her Myers-Briggs type, and it's not fair to assume that a person is going to behave a certain way or to be compatible with someone just because of a 4-letter code. This doesn't stop people, especially people who are familiar with the Myers-Briggs, to type others. I have to admit I'm guilty of it myself. For those of you who are familiar with Jungian functions and type theory, this is a gentle reminder that there are some uncomfortable but unavoidable biases when it comes to personality typing, including confirmation and projection biases. So please consider this when you're typing someone. Remember that your 4-letter Myers-Briggs type is just a description and it doesn't give an entire picture of who you are. For the purposes of this podcast, let's assume that Karen's partner has verified that he does indeed have INTJ preferences. So back to Karen's question about investing time into a relationship with an INTJ who seems to put work first. Let me start by describing a bit about the INTJ mindset. INTJs are known as scientists or strategists because they see the world full of possibilities waiting to be discovered. They process information in an abstract rather than a fact-based manner, and they're very logical when making decisions. But it's not the decision that's most intriguing to the INTJ, it's the process of discovery. Therefore, they love to learn, and better yet, put to practical use the information they've discovered. INTJs crave order and logic, so in this way, they can be considered perfectionists, and they're also very independent by nature. I'm going to assume that because Karen mentioned that she and her partner are both in their mid-40s, that they're both in established careers. An INTJ who has spent years establishing his career and putting his career first may be unequipped to deal with the emotions involved in relationships. INTJs who have not developed their feeling function may even come across as blunt or arrogant, while in some career fields, particularly in science, engineering, consulting, or other fields involving strategy and research, the INTJ's natural preferences and intelligence may have helped him excel, but relationships don't work this way. So for many INTJs, relationships and people's behavior is completely unfamiliar and frankly illogical. It therefore may take a lot of time for an INTJ to begin a romantic relationship. Because let's face it, many INTJs present as socially awkward. This is because they spend so much time in their heads, relishing in the discovery process of whatever it is they're passionate about. Without an opportunity to develop their non-preferred functions of feeling and sensing, there's less balance and less personal and professional growth. As we all know, without these opportunities, we get stuck in our ways the older we get. Relationships are often messy and illogical, not naturally comfortable places for an INTJ to be, and perhaps even more difficult for an INTJ who spent many years building his career. So with that said, INTJs are just as interested as any other Myers-Briggs type in having a relationship. But while they love the idea of a relationship, they may not have the drive to initiate a relationship in reality. This may actually be part of the problem with Karen, who mentioned she has ENFJ preferences. From a type theory perspective, unless her INTJ partner has irrevocably committed to her, in his mind, he may still be weighing the pros and the cons of committing and trying to understand the reasons for his attraction to her. A lot of INTJs I've known have had this problem. They're very slow to commit because they're afraid of being hurt down the road. Once INTJs do commit, they're almost always faithful partners who take the relationship very seriously, always strategizing about how to make things better. If Karen and her partner have made a commitment with each other, it's likely that her partner is clueless about expressing his romantic feelings in a way she can relate to. What I'm suspecting, though, is that this relationship has yet to be defined, and this INTJ man has a career in which he's seriously invested and committed. It may be that he's been in his field for such a long time that relationships have become secondary. It's understandable that he's treading lightly, giving himself time to understand and appreciate Karen. His work is where he's most comfortable, but in time, if the relationship continues, he'll find better balance. For Karen, it's important for her to let him be the independent man that he is. Her challenge is likely going to be to learn more patience and not to expect big romantic gestures right away. Being true to her ENFJ self, relationships are integral for her, and a lot of her happiness is going to depend on these relationships. ENFJ's focus is on interpersonal communication, and therefore they're great at avoiding conflicts at all costs. So it's very likely that Karen is afraid of saying something that will push her partner away. She may believe that her partner is disinterested in talking to her, when in fact he's either focused on other things like his work, or he's spending too much time in his head trying to figure out what might happen in the future instead of focusing on the present. Her instinct is also not to share her hurt feelings with her partner because A, she doesn't want to burden him with her sadness, and B, she doesn't want him to worry about her. Here's the good news. If this relationship does work out, fidelity will probably not be a problem for an INTJ and ENFJ pairing. Both are faithful and committed partners. They're likely going to be attracted to the differences in each other's energy levels, the ENFJ being bubbly and friendly, while the INTJ being calm and steady. Since they both share introverted intuition, they'll both probably enjoy intellectual conversations around big ideas and possibilities. My advice for Karen, if she is invested in this relationship, give her partner his space, be patient, although I know it's hard, and resist the urge to have a conversation defining the relationship. At the risk of sounding cliché, the truth is, if it's meant to be, it'll happen, though it may take some time. For INTJs who are listening and in a similar situation, the longer you wait to let your feelings known, the more you risk losing the person you love. ENFJ types may seem like they need lots of affirmation, but they thrive best in situations that are harmonious, and receiving meaningful affirmations from their partners are perhaps the best way they can achieve this harmony. Finally, please don't make the mistake of basing relationship happiness on the Myers-Briggs, which again is based on binary personality traits. Real life doesn't work this way. Any two healthy, well-adjusted people can have a successful relationship.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to hear more, or you'd like to submit a question yourself, then you can find us at www.atopcareer.com. Until next time. MBTI and Myers-Briggs are registered trademarks of the MBTI Trust.